Hello and welcome to Focus 54, your real guide to real African news. I'm your host, Prudence Mutimbanyoka. As we count down to the highly anticipated SADC Summit, we are shining a spotlight on Zimbabwe's accession to the throne, that is the chairmanship position. What does this mean to the region? Why is it such a big deal being a SADC chair, and what are the implications and expectations? We'll dive into the details with Dr. Victor Mapuvire and Mr. Nyikadzino, international relations experts. But first, let's take a tour of the continent and explore the top stories making the headlines. From politics to economy and from west to east, we've got you covered. We kickstart with Zimbabwe amid SADC preparations. Government have confirmed that the Museum of African Liberations in Harare's Warren Park suburb is getting ready to host regional leaders during the 44th SADC Summit, with visiting heads of state and government expected to tour the monument. And in South Africa, artificial intelligence is transforming workspace and schools in South Africa, thereby decreasing costs and efficiency in executing different tasks. In Nigeria, poultry high costs have forced 30% of Nigerian poultry farmers to close. Rising feed and product costs have caused poultry farmers to plead with the government for subsidies. We move on to Rwanda. As you know, 2024 has been an election year for Africa, and Rwanda has finally cast the ballots, and Rwanda's incumbent president, Paul Kagame, is leading with 99.15% of the votes cast in the nation's presidential election on Monday, according to provisional results based on a count of 79% of the ballots cast, the Rwanda National Electoral Commission. Last but not least, Ghana is working towards a 5G network rollout so that the country experiences better mobile broadband and affordable data for all citizens. And that's all we had for you in this segment. Please do join us in our next segment with Dr. Mapuvire and Mr. Nyikadzino joining us in the discussion about the SADC Summit today. Welcome back to Focus 54, the second segment. I'm still your host, Prudence Mutimbanyoka, and I'm joined by Dr. Mapuvire and Mr. Nyikadzino in the studio to help us unpack the benefits of assuming the SADC region chairmanship role. Welcome to Focus 54, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, let's get into it. What is the symbolic significance of the SADC chairmanship, and how does it reflect Zimbabwe's stature in the region? Let's start with you.
Well, SADC chairmanship, Zimbabwe assuming the chairmanship this year, it's monumental, and that Zimbabwe has always been regarded as a leader within the region, and this just presents an opportunity for the country to reaffirm what it's been known for as one of the leaders in the Southern African region and one of the founding members of SADC, and one of the key members in the organ before SADC, the frontline states. So most nations within the region have always looked up to Zimbabwe to lead, and especially events over the past few years, how Zimbabwe has withstood a lot of attacks and a lot of machinations from our detractors. We've stood firm, and we've been able to flourish under difficult conditions. So this is a moment now. It's symbolic in that it shows that the SADC region can actually flourish even amidst a lot of difficulties. And Zimbabwe assuming this chairmanship is quite significant, as I feel it's the perfect time that Zimbabwe can now use to showcase the region what it's made of in terms of its leadership capabilities.
So in other words, you're saying it is helping us to change the narrative.
Exactly that. We're able to change the narrative and shape not only the present, but the future. You've seen how Zimbabwe under the Second Republic has been at the forefront of a lot of activities that have changed not only Zimbabwe, but have changed the country's perception. His Excellency has been on a campaign, a crusade rather, that has been able to uplift Zimbabwe. We are no longer viewed as a weak nation as prior before. We are now viewed with esteem. We are now an esteemed nation, and we have now earned our respect back. So this is quite a perfect opportunity now for us to continue building upon that and hope for a brighter future.
Okay. Mr. Nyikadzino, how does the chairmanship impact Zimbabwe's ability to shape the regional policies and decisions?
Thank you. So when you look at Zimbabwe, we've been there from colonization into independence, into aspects of decolonization, globalization, and all those phases. And now when you look at how important this is in shaping the trajectory of the region, it reminds us of going back to the founding values, where as a country, 44 years into this organization, we have remained part and parcel of it. Unlike when you look at other regions where there are splits within those regions and others, they are forming different blocks, it tells us differently about Zimbabwe. One, it shows us that we are still committed to the founding principles of this organization. Okay. It is built around the issue of ensuring that the strategic culture of the region, which is against imperialism, new imperialism, is emerged as a power block in terms of the status of the region. So basically it is very important. Now, how does it shape the region and Zimbabwe itself? You know, a region that has values will be able to influence other countries. So these values in Zimbabwe, they are also reflective of the region in terms of unity and other political, social, and economic beliefs.
And what do you think are the benefits economically, like in trade and investment?
The bigger line is the bloc is shifting its focus from an old way of doing things to a new aspect of regionalism. For instance, previously people used to talk of import substitution. There were a lot of barriers to trade, barriers to movement of goods, but now we are focusing more on regional and economic integration, where because of investments, previously where there was low FDI, now we are talking of high FDI, because the focus primarily is about economic integration. Even the bloc itself, following the end of apartheid, it shifted from political solidarity into more of economic liberty and economic integration. So this will be key in terms of highlighting how the economy has become a factor in ensuring that regions, they grow together, because what we do as a single nation is difficult from what we do together. We have more benefits when we do things together, unlike when we are alone. So I think this speaks of what the region is focusing on and what Zimbabwe is also looking up to in terms of its contributions.
Okay. And Dr. Mapuvire, how does the chairmanship influence Zimbabwe's role in regional peacekeeping and conflict resolution efforts?
Well, Zimbabwe has never shied away from peacekeeping in the region. We've been quite prominent in that area. We all know that Zimbabwe participated in the DRC campaign. We've been participating in peacekeeping missions in Mozambique, and we've always participated whenever one of our neighbors is called upon us to assist in peacekeeping missions, not only within SADC, the SADC region alone, but we've gone as far as Kosovo. Zimbabwean peacekeepers are well known for being effective and having played a prominent role in peacekeeping. So Zimbabwe assuming the chairmanships of SADC, and us having that experience attained over years in various peacekeeping missions, be it the UN, Africa Union, and so forth. It's basically us have been positioned in the right place where we're supposed to be. So we will be able, I think, to play a more prominent role in peacekeeping within the region.
And diplomatically, how do you think it's going to strengthen the relations with the SADC member states?
well, already the relations between Zimbabwe and its fellow SADC states have already been strong. So I don't think it's a matter of focusing on the strength, so on building the strength, so to speak, but on building upon that strength that already exists. And like was mentioned earlier, the focus now is not more or less to do with the politics of the region, but more to do with issues with industrialization, the economies, and how we can improve trade and movement of goods and people within the region. Already we've made some strides. Remember, there is that deal that is being currently tabled between Zimbabwe and Botswana, where we're supposed to have citizens from both countries cross borders without passports. So those are some of the issues now that I think that we should be placing focus on, and issues that will benefit the region more. Free movement of people, free movement of goods, that will be able to integrate the region and make the region more solid in terms of not only the economics, but also the relations between countries within the region.
Okay. So how does this impact Zimbabwe's global standings and relations with international partners?
So firstly, we need to look at SADC itself. How does it contribute to the agenda, for instance, of the continental body, the African Union? Remember, we are talking about Agenda 2063, and how does SADC contribute to that? Firstly, the anchor of this position is to ensure that there is a free movement of goods and services, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And that makes Africa the biggest trading bloc. So in terms of Zimbabwe and SADC's contribution in that stature, remember, we've got resources. South Africa and Zimbabwe, they are the leading countries apart from Russia in terms of platinum production. When you look at Mozambique, it has natural gas. Here also in Zimbabwe, we are having some gas and oil explorations that are taking place. So in ensuring our position as on the global platform, the resources that we have, they should position us well in terms of ensuring that we are made to have a significant position. For instance, we are talking of lithium and maybe electric vehicles, the vehicle market. It tells a lot about how we should position ourselves. In that contribution now, it means the people, they have to benefit. While the nation has the resources, how does that translate to improve the livelihoods of the common individual, so that at the end of the day, the global standard that we have, it could be in the health sector, it could be in the education sector, how does it translate from the use of our own resources? So I think we have a very big position to use as leverage when we want to position ourselves because of these resources.
Okay, let's try to lower it down to the ordinary citizen. What does it mean to the ordinary citizen? To Gogovari Kumusha or anyone who doesn't know what this is all about?
So first of all, to the ordinary person, what I would think they should be able to realize is that the peace that we have enjoyed in this region, for instance, in terms of security, in terms of stability, except from a few pockets which I think and believe that the regional leaders are putting commitments to, the ordinary person ought to understand that a region that does not have peace will not draw enough investments. So whatever we are benefiting from this block, the common man has to appreciate peace first. And when that happens, you know, the policies also should be synchronized and coordinated in a way that ensures that basically the people are going to benefit. It could be through investments, and also look at this trilateral agreement between Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique about the railway corridor. You know, the movement of goods, you know. So I think there are a lot of benefits, but these benefits should be quickly translatable to the pockets of the individual, especially when it comes to issues of the improvement of livelihoods. So there is more to benefit from that scenario.
Okay, thank you. On that note, we'll take a short break. This is a Focus 54. Stay tuned. This is the third segment of Focus 54, and welcome. I'm still your host, Prudence Mutimba with Dr. Mapuvire and Mr. Nyikadzino in the studio. We are discussing about the chairmanship of SADC that Zimbabwe is assuming. Sir, what are the expectations? What do you think are the expectations from the regional community of this tenure?
Well, the regional community is obviously looking up to Zimbabwe to lead. Like as I said earlier, Zimbabwe has strategically placed itself and has proven itself to be a capable leader. So the entire region is looking up to Zimbabwe to lead and set a narrative and move the region forward. Like the same amount of progress that has been achieved within a short span within the past 4 or 5 years within Zimbabwe. I mean, we've seen infrastructure development in the country of epic proportions. We've never seen anything like it before. The road rehabilitation programs, the dams being constructed in Zimbabwe, some of them had been in the pipeline for over 90 years, like the Kwaishangani Dam. So the region should tap into that, and they should be able to tap into Zimbabwe's energy, because now Zimbabwe has got this energy, the urge to move forward and get things done.
And it has shown the ability of doing all this.
Yes, and we've been able to get things done. Like Zimbabwe now, it's not business as usual. We are getting things done in the Second Republic. So it is an opportune moment for the region now to also tap into that energy, into that momentum, and they should also be able to apply that within their individual countries and within the region as a collective. And we should see a different SADC upon the end of our chairmanship. We should see a tone that's set, a narrative that's set, and we should be able to actually see the light at the end of the tunnel by the time that Zimbabwe hands over the chairmanship to the next chairman.
And maybe they can tap into our mantras, joining re-engagement and engagement drive. And
a friend to all, enemy to none, yes. So Zimbabwe now, we're at a point where we are open. Zimbabwe is basically open. We are friends, open for business. We're friends with everyone, and we have no enemies, and we're saying those who want to come and build with us, they're welcome to come and do so. So we are at a moment that is a defining moment in our history, that we are going to look back and say, this was the golden age that Zimbabwe went through, and the region can also tap into that, and we could all benefit as an entire region from this same energy that Zimbabwe has.
And leaving no one and no place behind.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so how will the chairmanship affect the implementation of SADC's regional integration agenda?
So I would think not affect exactly, but maybe influence, how this will influence. Remember, at one point, I think President Mnangagwa once said Zimbabwe lost 20 years of development because of attempts to isolate it from the international arena. And when you look at the bearing that the loss of time we had on today's infrastructure, it tells a lot. So the bearing, or how this will influence the region, for instance, for smooth trade to occur, we need a level of minimum development across SADC member states. So that when we talk of the issues of integration, we have a platform of essence to make a comparison to. So in this year, from August, when Zimbabwe assumes, I think the efforts to pursue the industrial agenda should not stop at the end of the summit. During the course of Zimbabwe's chairmanship, the issue of industrialization, the issue of infrastructure development, the issue of service provision, the issue of ensuring that the objectives of the industrial agenda are met should be part and parcel of Zimbabwe's development thrust nationally and also regionally, because the efforts that are being made in terms of, in fact, I'm glad when the government said these infrastructure developments are going to continue even after the SADC preparations are done. So it tells about the trajectory of what the government intends to do at a time when we do not have access to external loans, we do not have access to external funding. All things are being done on the basis of what we are capable of. So it also influences other states to do the best they can with the resources they have, because no one is going to come and say, Zimbabwe, I'm going to build a dam for you. We ought to do it on our own. So I think that alone should influence regional aspects of development.
Okay, but what are the challenges you think, or and the responsibilities that come with chairmanship?
So the biggest challenge, might be bureaucracy. The scope of ensuring that what has been agreed, remember, besides being a bloc, we are also individual states. And as individual states, there are issues to do with interests. Okay. So the issue of bureaucracy and the interests of other states might be a challenge. But, the biggest challenge that the region had was colonialism, and we managed to do that. And we are also fighting hard to defeat neo-colonialism. For instance, when you look at the project, the Museum of African Liberation, it's a big ideological entity. So pertaining to that, we know challenges might be assumed, but of course, because we have managed to progress over time, it means there is a way that can be found to ensure that the interests of the region are prioritized.
Okay. Yeah. He's talking about the neo-colonialism challenge, which is a very big challenge for us. How do you think we can navigate, and even other problems besides the neo-colonialism?
Well, neo-colonialism, we've been fighting with that since we managed to fend off colonialism. It's not peculiar to Zimbabwe, but the entire region. We need to place increased focus on decolonizing the African mind. And we've made attempts. Most of the countries in the SADC region, they are led by political parties that are called the former liberation movements, or the six sister parties of the liberation struggles. And these have come together, and they've come up with a school of ideology in Tanzania, whose major thrust is to decolonize the African mind. And added to that school in Tanzania, each party in their individual states is been tasked with coming up with their own version of the Chitepo school of ideology that we have here in Zimbabwe, as part of efforts now to instill the right type of ideology. So it starts with instilling the right kind of ideology within the youth, especially because they are the ones that, number one, the majority in terms of population, and the ones that are still able to actually contribute more significantly to building their individual nations. So we seem to be operating in a crisis where the minds of our youth have been captured by the neo-colonialists, and we need to then unshackle them and decolonize their minds so that they can truly realize that the only people who are going to make their individual nations progress are themselves, as truly said by the president. There's no one who's going to come and start building our individual nations. There's no one who's going to come and start building SADC for us. But it is a task that we all have the responsibility of, to ensure that we come together and we build our individual countries, and we build the entire region, and we make it more solid. We need to take on from already what we've been given, and already we were given the greatest gift, which was liberation. Most of us were born in an era where we have nations within the SADC region, all of them are liberated. So we now need to build upon that firm foundation, ensure that we have the right ideology and we have the right form of patriotism, and we are nationalist, and push the narrative for economic development, because you cannot emancipate yourselves economically when your minds are still in shackles. So we need to first of all free the mind, so that we're able to then attain the right level of economic development that we need.
And how will Zimbabwe's performance as the SADC chairman impact its own national development goals and priorities?
Well, Zimbabwe is known as a trendsetter. We've always punched above our weight. We've always been the first to do most of the things that we've done. I mean, land reform program, we're the first to do that, I think, in the entire world, if not in Africa. And we've always been the model, the perfect model of how it means to be African. We do have that sense of what a liberated African should embody. So this is an opportunity for us to showcase our abilities, to say, we as Zimbabweans, we have this yearning to develop ourselves, to emancipate ourselves, and the rest of the region can watch. They may not necessarily copy everything that we do, but it sets the right tone to say this is the right direction that we should be heading towards for us to reach emancipation and economic development.
Okay. And say, how will the chairmanship and the Industrialization Week address the region's infrastructure development needs?
Thank you. So I think that week is crucial to identify the missing links that need to be addressed as part of the region's integration and industrial agenda. So in as much as that week comes, it's essential to identify that when we want to talk of the movement of goods, how best should we do it? When we want to talk of science, innovation, and problem solving, how best can we do it? For instance, you remember that King Muswati, during his tenure, I think around 2016, he proposed that we have the SADC University of Transformation, and that is key in aligning the education values of our SADC countries to meet the idea of innovation, the idea of inventions, the idea of problem solving. So essentially what it means is the SADC industrialization, when it comes, it is going to pinpoint where we have deficiencies, and it is also going to highlight what we need to strengthen. Like for instance, we say we have a lot of minerals this side. What it means is that how best can we extract them? Because most of the times you discover that companies that do explorations, yes, it's a global village, but we also need local companies. We also need local people to benefit from such projects when it comes to exploration. So besides highlighting the deficiencies, it will also be keen on strengthening policy, and it will also be essential in synchronizing what has to be done, either it's Zimbabwe, it's Malawi, it's Zambia, or South Africa. Okay. All of these things have to be understood from the same point of view.
And in your own view,
yeah,
how and what should be done to ensure that the benefits of industrialization and economic growth are shared equitably among member states and communities?
So like I said before, when we do things together, in terms of input, even the outputs will get more than what we're getting as individual countries. So in as much as what this does in terms of benefit, I think it also strengthens the region's desire for interdependence in terms of development. To say, as Zimbabwe, we cannot do it alone, but we can also invite South Africa, we can also invite Mozambique and other countries. So this tells a lot, in my view, of what has to be done in terms of ensuring that this development thrust, this issue of industrialization, because remember, it's been on the table for a long time, and the benefits, they should start trickling in, not tomorrow, but today. And this is only shown by the commitment that we have, not only from our leaders, but even from the citizens. And what I would want to say is, I wouldn't want to see the region fail, because if the region fails, it also means the people have failed. It will affect the people. Okay. So everyone has to benefit from resolutions that have to come from the Industrialization Week, and all forms of implementation, they have to be done at a national level so that the people will also benefit.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Well, this is a Focus of 54, where we are discussing about the accession to the throne that is the SADC chairmanship of our country. Thank you for staying tuned. Join us same time, same place. Stay blessed.